As we have now entered the second phase of 1.4, both Xiangli Yao and Yinlin currently are out as the limited banner characters. I recently did go over how valuable Yinlin's banner is, as it has been a while since her initial release. But even though it hasn't been that long since Xiangli Yao's release, I have come across numerous players asking whether he is worth summoning for, as they weren't able to pick him up for free back in 1.2. So due to that, I'll be going through some of Xiangli Yao's kit standouts, sequence notes for players that may already have him and are looking to invest for the long run, whether his signature weapon is necessary, and ultimately if you should summon for Xiangli Yao. Just before we jump into it, as always, would really appreciate it if you could subscribe for more WutheringWaves content and drop a like if you enjoyed the video. Now, as for Xiangli Yao's kit, you could just break it down to him simply being an electro main DPS that deals major burst damage, but that wouldn't really be doing his amazing and intricate kit any justice. Xiangli Yao's main source of damage is accessed through his Resonance Liberation, which as mentioned will be capable of dealing major burst damage, but would also allow him to enter his secondary state known as the Intuition state. Once entering his secondary state, Xiangli Yao will gain access to his alternate forte gauge and a quicker basic attack string to then trigger the Law of Rain skill, which can be activated 3 times whilst in the Intuition state and will deal significant damage, scaling off Resonance Liberation damage. However, it doesn't stop there, as his inherent skill is also activated once entering the Intuition state, which enables Xiangli Yao's resistance to interruption to be enhanced. If you do have experience with Calcharo, you would understand how extremely valuable this inherent skill is alone. Both Calcharo and Xiangli Yao do play fairly similar, as they enter a secondary state once activating the Liberation and will have a time limit to deal as much damage as they can. Although with Calcharo, since he doesn't have his resistance to interruption enhanced just like Xiangli Yao, it will then be much more difficult to get the most out of Calcharo's Liberation, ultimately leading to it most of the time being completely underutilized. Additionally, Calcharo's secondary state only lasts for 11 seconds, which isn't that much time to deal enough damage once you are being constantly interrupted during certain situations. So Xiangli Yao's inherent skill, as simple as it is, holds a ton of value, which could be the difference between an okay DPS and an amazing DPS. Along with the inherent skill, and likely the most unique aspect of the Intuition state, once activating the Law of Rain skill, Xiangli Yao will slow down time for a couple of seconds, which would provide you with the chance to avoid any death dealing attacks or to even reposition yourself. So considering Xiangli Yao is able to activate the Law of Rain skill 3 times during his secondary state, it does allow for it to be even easier to utilize Xiangli Yao going through his rotation. So with that, Xiangli Yao is then not only one of the best DPS characters in the game, but arguably one of the easiest to utilize in the most hectic situations, ultimately allowing him to be amazing for less skilled players that would require a bit of an advantage against difficult content. Regarding other noticeable aspects of Xiangli Yao's kit, the Resonance skill definitely holds its own significance. The base Resonance skill is just a quick slash with a 5-second cooldown and provides a lot of stacks to Xiangli Yao's forte gauge, which would allow you to max out the gauge often, and once you have completely filled it, the enhanced Resonance skill will then be available to activate immediately. The difference between the base and enhanced Resonance skill, as you can imagine, would be that it does deal more damage, but also gains the ability to lunge at enemies from quite a distance away. So similar to Changli's ability to track and hit the enemy after popping a skill, Xiangli Yao can essentially do the same, which allows you to close the gap between yourself and enemies to avoid wasting time, along with dealing great damage. So Xiangli Yao's kit is definitely one of the more comfortable ones to utilize, and it certainly packs a punch, allowing you to deal insane amounts of burst damage and is overall pretty fun to play with. Just before we jump into the value of Xiangli Yao's sequence nodes, there will definitely be some considerations to bear in mind. For instance, as great as Xiangli Yao is, he isn't exactly a one-man army and would need a solid team beside him. So particularly if you don't have Yinlin on your account, I would highly recommend completely disregarding any sequence nodes for Xiangli Yao until you do have Yinlin, given she does specialize in supporting electro DPS characters and liberation damage dealers, which Xiangli Yao is literally a combination of both, meaning he will gain a massive amount of value and a significant damage increase from Yinlin. Of course, you don't need Yinlin to use Xiangli Yao, as there are alternative sub-DPS options such as Changli, Jianxin, and even Yangyang. However, the difference between Yinlin and any other character in the sub DPS position for Xiangli Yao is massive, which provides reason enough to prioritize going for Yinlin that is out alongside Xiangli Yao than going for his sequence nodes. Secondly, in other gachas like HonkaiStarRail, it could be debated whether you should go for the weapon equivalent or a dupe of the character. But since weapon banners in WutheringWaves are guaranteed, I would strongly advise on securing the signature weapon for Xiangli Yao if you don't already have it, as it will provide more of a damage increase than his first sequence node and, as mentioned, will be guaranteed. Whereas with sequence nodes, unless you are guaranteed to win a 50-50, then there is a chance you do lose to someone like Yangyang. So before taking that gamble, the signature weapon should be priority over any sequence nodes. Lastly, more of a subjective stance, but since version 2.0 is the very next update, it means Carlotta and Rochia will be the first of the Renacita roster dropping, which are expected to bring forth possible new features and mechanics that will stand out from our current characters. So it is more of a heads up that if you are looking to go in for the Renacita characters, then you may want to reconsider going for any sequence nodes for Xiangli Yao. Now, if you have taken all of that into consideration and are still willing to go in for Xiangli Yao sequence nodes, then bear in mind they all do provide solid value, but the later sequence nodes, as you would imagine, will provide a lot more value in extending Xiangli Yao's longevity. The first three are slight increases in Xiangli Yao's personal damage, and each would be more valuable than the last, as you could expect. The first sequence node will only provide 6 additional smaller hits during the Law of Rain skill, so it is a boost in DPS, but it isn't the most noticeable increase. The second provides a boost in crit damage of 30%, which should have a 100% uptime, due to the fact that you can cast a resonant skill every 5 seconds and the crit damage buff lasts for 8 seconds, so it would be a much more noticeable difference in Xiangli Yao's overall damage. The third sequence node will provide a damage increase of 63% through any of Xiangli Yao's resonant skills after using the Liberation and can be triggered 5 times. Considering this includes the Enhanced Resonant skill and Law of Rain skill, this sequence node in specific will be the first to have a huge impact on Xiangli Yao's DPS. From the fourth sequence node onwards, I would argue is whale territory and my advice would be somewhat meaningless, but since we're already here, the fourth enables Xiangli Yao to be more of a dual DPS character, given he provides a 25% increase in liberation damage to all allies for 30 seconds. So it will definitely allow Xiangli Yao to be more flexible within team building, but it wouldn't mean his allies will receive the full buff duration, as you would still need to complete Xiangli Yao's rotation. So considering it takes 15 seconds on average to complete it from the moment Xiangli Yao pops the liberation, you would then leave your allies with a powerful liberation boost for roughly 15 seconds. As for the 5th and 6th sequence node, combined Xiangli Yao's outro skill damage multiplier is increased by 222%, the resonant liberation damage multiplier is increased by 100%, and the Law of Rain skill damage multiplier receives an increase of 76%. So both are pretty much overkill, and as should any final 2 sequence nodes on a character, would likely allow Xiangli Yao to be capable of wiping out everything till end of service. Now, if you aren't a whale and you do want to pick up some dupes for Xiangli Yao, I would say a good stopping point is sequence node 3, as you are receiving a solid increase in DPS. But you can also stop at sequence node 2 if you can't afford to go to 3. It's just that I wouldn't recommend going in for just the first sequence node, since it doesn't offer that much of an increase in DPS. So do with that what you will. Regarding Xiangli Yao's signature weapon, it is still of course his best weapon option by far, given it is the only 5-star gauntlet with a crit main stat. Also, it specifically increases resonance liberation damage through the passive, along with a 12% attribute damage bonus, so it will definitely provide a massive increase in DPS. Now, my stance on main DPS characters is that if you intend to main them, then their signature weapon is completely worth it, considering they would be the character with the most field time and will be the carrier for your team, meaning you will only rely on their damage. So in order to maximize their damage, the signature weapon would be necessary. However, unlike other weapons, Verity's Handle's passive isn't the easiest to activate since it provides a 48% liberation damage bonus for only 8 seconds, but it can be extended by 5 seconds when casting a resonance skill and stacks up to a total of 15 additional seconds. So with other signature weapons that may require the activation of a resonance skill or an intro skill to obtain the full effects of the passive, the Verity's Handle would only be fully utilized by a Gauntlet's character with a short resonance skill cooldown like Xiangli Yao. So bear in mind that other Gauntlet characters will gain value from the main stat and passive, but would likely miss out on 10 seconds of a 48% liberation damage bonus. Additionally, there are alternatives such as the Abyss Surges and Stoneheart that allow Xiangli Yao to still be capable of dealing more than enough damage. So if you do find that to be the case and you are able to clear through endgame content without much difficulty, then of course you can skip the signature weapon. However, if you are looking to extend Xiangli Yao's longevity for as much as possible since you do really enjoy playing with him, then you should consider pulling for the signature weapon as there likely won't be a better option for a while. Overall, Xiangli Yao is certainly still one of the best DPS characters in the game. Not only due to his insane levels of DPS, but since he is fun to play with and has unique aspects to his kits which enables for a more comfortable experience. So if you weren't fortunate enough to miss him back in 1.2, then I would say he is still very much worth picking up. And as for his sequence nodes, as mentioned, if you do want to further invest in Xiangli Yao, his sequence nodes do provide solid value, but you would have to pick up more than just one to see a real impact. That aside, if you are just after a powerful DPS, then maybe it would be better just waiting for 2.0 to come around. Since we are receiving Carlotta, which is expected to be an amazing DPS character, along with the long-awaited return of Jinxin. So if you are strictly after more DPS and you are able to wait a couple of more weeks, then I would recommend just holding out till version 2.0. But with that being said, Xiangli Yao still offers enough damage to clear majority of content, and depending on your account having the right characters, you may then want to prioritize Xiangli Yao. And with that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Would really appreciate it if you could subscribe for more WutheringWaves content, and if you enjoyed the video, drop a like. Also drop a comment down below whether you will be picking up Xiangli Yao, his weapon or sequence nodes, or will you be skipping. And yeah, hope to catch you guys later.